welcome to Behind the Mask. I'm EJ and Lori and T are here today so we can talk about episode 45, The Masks of Experiences. Just a friendly reminder that anything discussed in this podcast is not to be used as a diagnosis or a replacement for conversations with your own doctors, therapists, psychologists, or other medical professionals. We are actually going to talk about experiences. Again, we've been kind of following along, talking about different personality traits, and this is kind of how experiences can affect or cause different personality traits, both good and bad, some or positive, negative, depending on how you want to look at it. Yeah, I think we're going to just hop right in, and we have good reasons why experiences can, impact us, but then there's, always, if you lose somebody in your family, then you're maybe more sensitive. Like just recently, the season finale of one of my favorite shows, they killed off a father figure to one of the characters. And I, having just lost my dad, it really hit me. And I think a little more than maybe some others, but, a lot of people are really affected. So it's good. But, just personality wise, like having that experience of losing my dad, really like that in the future, and even losing my mom, any person losing a parent, just it really impacts me. So that's just one of my experiences of just recently that hit me. So yeah.
T, what about you?
Well, I think, as EJ was talking, I was imagining being stuck inside a pinball machine. That being bounced around from one experience to the other, and how it can, if this is so old school, but on a pinball machine, the more you're bounced around, the more points you rack up. So there's something positive.
Life experience points, right?
Yeah. But experiences can impact our personality traits and affect how we do things and a little bit of who we are. But who we are and how we do things also impacts those experiences. And so, and how we handle them and deal with them. And I think that's an important factor too. And I think sometimes people forget that the experiences don't necessarily define who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I know. I was one of those people for a long time. I think for a majority of my life, which was part of the issues or part of the problems or whatever, was that for a majority of my life, I only identified as a victim, because there had been so much damage and so much abuse. And, I've shared a lot of that previously in this podcast, but I didn't really know how to identify as anything but a victim. And it affected how I viewed everything. And now, I was just having a great conversation yesterday with my therapist, and I look at different scenarios that I go through now, and I don't run away anymore, which is amazing, because that's exactly what I would have done before. I would have run out of the room, whether physically or mentally, or emotionally. But I'm not doing that anymore. I'm using the emotional tools that I've now created and built and put into my toolbox. I ground myself. I can meditate. I can mindfully recenter myself. I'm not having the night terrors anymore. Praise God, I actually get sleep normally. So except when, life gets in the way, but not because I couldn't fall asleep or because I was too afraid to sleep. So there's been a lot of changes, and I feel like, kind of like you said, I'm not necessarily a pinball for me. I feel like I've taken this huge leap, but I'm not quite to the other side yet. I feel like I'm in the in the air, and we're going on, and I know where we're going. I can see it, but I haven't quite landed yet. I kind of feel like I've made a huge shift, many huge shifts within my life. And now, recently my birthday, I'm 53. It's so crazy to think that I'm just a little over half a century old, But in this past 3 years, especially, I've been doing lots of change.
Mhm.
And these transformations have affected my personality, the way that I see things, my experiences, and I'm having massive shifts. So, not quite sure where I'm going to land yet, but I've already leapt. I've already taken those huge
Mhm.
steps of faith, if you will, and I'm in midair right now. And it's fun. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of thrilling. It's scary. But in a different kind of scary. Not, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I'm going to drop because I can't keep moving forward. But I just don't know what's next kind of way. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with my experiences. They're still there. Um, EJ and I recently had an experience. Someone gave me a gift certificate. It's weird because I was kind of thinking, wow, does this person really know me? But then they actually ended up giving me a really beautiful gift. Because I realized that I was able to not only survive, but really kind of excel through an experience that I previously would never have been able to excel through. And EJ, you were with me, while we were there. I went to this very hickish, countryish restaurant, bar place. And at one point in there, I did feel like I couldn't breathe a little bit. I kept looking up, and I think the first probably half of the time that we were there, I constantly kept feeling like there was my second husband was going to jump out around the corner. The music, everything about where we were was cowboy land, and it was not, I would never have been like, yeah, let's go here. But
And I'm like, when can we go back?
I know she was loving every second of it, but
Lord never sees me act like that at anywhere before.
no, she was, yeah, EJ, yes, which I think actually, amazingly enough, kind of helped me center and reground a little bit. And I just prayed, and we ended up sitting there, and I finally came to a space where I was like, okay, you can do this, and but EJ had said to me all throughout the whole thing, if you want to leave, just let me know, we'll take it and go. But I wanted to get to a point where I could eat, where I could just kind of overcome all of the nausea and the craziness that was going on inside of my mind and my heart and everything else. And I was able to do that. I definitely didn't get through, the whole meal and all of that. But I got to enough where I felt victorious. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to go now, and boxed up most of my food, mostly because I can't eat that much at one time anyway. But I got through enough that I felt victorious. And then we were able to take it and go home, and I was able to be in my safe, happy place. And so it was just a really good experience. And I'm really glad that EJ was by my side, because I think maybe even just walking in the door was like, gave me the creeps. But
Oh, I think it did, because we walked in and like there's the little entryway foyer and then there's like the actual building. And so she, like, there were benches all along kind of one side of the wall. And so she gets to this bench and she sits down at the closest to the exit. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well. And, so yeah, but I was really proud of you. And yeah, I was, I think I kept checking in because I know, because I mean, obviously I've known you for 8 years now, and I know that this is not your environment. They're playing like classic country music from like, Johnny Cash to like the 90s and even current stuff. I'm singing along to every song because I know every one of them. It's wood, there's, stuffed animals on the wall, there's, cow heads and, all that stuff, that your typical country kind of like bar. And I was like, are you sure you're okay? Because I know this is not her environment. I know she's not comfortable here, but I also don't want to force her to be someplace just because I like it. And so I kept checking in, but I was really proud of her to, 'cause she did get through it. And, we talked about it and we talked through it. And and she shared a lot, even more than what she shared on here, about her second husband and a lot of what he did. And it made her very uncomfortable. And I don't blame her for feeling that uncomfortableness, but she did push through, and she did, like she said, come to kind of a peace. And I'm proud of you for that, because I don't think the Lori I knew 3 years ago even would have done that. You would have been walked in and walked right out.
So a couple of things as you guys are talking about this is one thing, is we can all approach the same experience, the same event, but because of previous experiences have a different reaction to that experience.
Right.
And so you, EJ, it was uplifting to you. You had a different, your experience of that environment was completely different than Lori's. Now it sounded like it got more in line as you guys went, but because you associate that environment with positive things, Lori was associating it with a negative experience. And so our previous experiences can really inform our current experiences. And then I like the fact that it's like, okay, let's go through this, because this isn't that experience, and see what we can get out of it. I know that I was in a situation like that a couple of years ago where, I have pretty significant social anxiety, and I put myself in a situation where I was going to have to be social. And now I've been away from home. I go on conferences for work. That's different. I do get homesick, but it's different. This was a situation where I was going to be around people 24/7. I was going to be sleeping in rooms with people I didn't know. And so my challenge to myself was get through one night, because if you go home right now, you're not coming back, because it wasn't far from home. You're not coming back. So if you push yourself to get through this night, have that success, be here in the morning when they have breakfast, then we'll take the day as it goes. And it worked, because I made it through the night. I had that breakfast. I started getting comfortable with my environment. Then that night I did end up going, then the second night I did go home and go to sleep because I could get a shower, but I came back the next morning. But I don't think I'd have gone back if I wouldn't have stayed that first night.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we do in an experience can also impact how we handle future experiences like it.
Yeah, I hear about that. And and other personality traits, like I try to be assertive, but in the past when I've tried to be assertive, I get shot down. So I've become more like focused. Growing up, I was an only child, so I was happy as a clam to be by myself doing my own things, and I am happy to do that. And even now, like, I find enjoyment in solo things. Sometimes it drives Lori crazy, other times she can get it. I thrive there. And, we're getting ready to go on a road trip, and I'm thriving in the excitement of going. And she's just like, okay, we're going to go, we're going to get there, and you're going to just, yeah. So we're going to get to have a lot of experiences, and I think a lot of new ones for both of us on this trip. And, but again, I think because of my experiences when I was younger with the introversion, as well as being shot down every time I was trying to be assertive. And, I was in a job for a while that I was promoted to a shift leader, but nobody wanted to listen to what I said because they just wanted to do their own dang thing. It made it really challenging to say, oh, okay, you're doing the right thing. So now I've become more what the opposite, according to the personality test that we took, is turbulent, which is more of you're self-conscious, sensitive to stress, success-driven, perfectionist, and eager to improve. Because we don't want to be, so, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely it, because I've unfortunately had experiences where I wasn't given the ground to actually be assertive and have people listen to me when I was.
I feel like for me, one of those silver linings, blessings that you don't expect from my growing up in the environment that I grew up in, especially with my skills, not myself, but my skills, my gifts, and my talents. I was very encouraged to build them, to use them, and to know that if I put my mind to it, that there was nothing on it within a job, within a pursuit, that I couldn't do. I think the nice thing about, and the scary thing, and the thing that always makes me feel uncomfortable right now, is that when it comes to my personal, like loving myself, putting up healthy boundaries, saying no, still not really good at that.
No, you're terrible at it.
I am terrible at it. Absolutely terrible.
I love you.
But
because here's the thing, as the whole being lacking of assertiveness, turbulent people often will cling to those who are assertive and like, oh, we'll just help you out. So then what I'm doing is helping her out with things that she says yes to.
It's been an adventure, we'll give it that.
Yeah.
But I want to continue to work on that, but I don't. I come across as extremely confident because that's the way that I was raised. And I definitely, I mean, this statement is from mine and T's era. We're going to fake it till we make it. I will bluster my way through pretty much anything. Scared out of my boots, terrified sometimes, but if it has to do with a talent or a skill or somebody has told my inner little rebel that I can't do it, all bets are off. I'm going to go do it now. So I think that, on the outside, yes, very assertive. On the inside, we're working on it. I'm a work in progress. We'll go there.
Well, and that's not uncommon.
Yeah, I certainly, when I was younger, was definitely turbulent. I was also very meek, and I was a yes person. Like, I would say yes to everything because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings or let people down or be less than, or just not meeting everybody's expectations somehow meant I was a failure. So that was my younger self. And then as I grew older and had experiences, as I started learning more about what assertiveness is, about my role in my life, then I started becoming more assertive, because through observing others, I had to kind of internalize that sometimes and realize that not getting my needs met, not doing those things wasn't doing anyone any favors. It wasn't doing me any favors, wasn't doing my loved ones any favors or my friends any favors, because I wasn't giving people a chance to respect my thoughts and my feelings. When I assume I'm the only one with the answers, then I'm taking everybody else's ability to have answers away. And so over time, I've learned to be able to delegate better, to be able to stand firm on certain things, to be less affected by what other people think or say about me or to me, because it's not perfect. There's still times that old wounds will get opened by certain personality types very easily. But that awareness is growing too. And one of the things I tell clients is, why do we give other people power over our inside?
Right.
Why do we give them the power? Just because they say something doesn't make it true. So if they say
Right.
you're lazy, if someone looks at you and says you're lazy, why are you giving that any power?
Right.
Is it true? Is it your truth? If it is, then maybe it is something to address, and you can appreciate, even though they were a jerk, that hey, it may have brought you, something to your awareness, and you can do something about it if you choose. But other than that, really, why do we give other people power?
Yeah.
And so that mentality has sort of led me to being more assertive and being more comfortable there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good segue into our next kind of what we wanted to talk about, because we wanted to talk about how do we sharpen these skills, because we have all these skills, we know our personalities, and as we've talked about, we were given a percentage as we took these. I'm like 75 or 80% turbulent, but if I want to be more assertive, how do I get there, or how have I worked on getting there? And the same with all of us. There's certain things like we may want to work on. And I know T, you shared in the past that you used to be very turbulent, and then you've kind of worked on being more assertive. So now your percentages for your assertiveness are a little higher. And you said you were assertive, I think, on the test and not
Mhm.
turbulent, because it's something you've been working on.
Yes.
So can you share with us a couple of things, a couple of ways, some tips?
I think sometimes it boils down, do we need to? If it works for us, don't fix what's not broke. So if, like EJ, if turbulent works for you, if it gets what you need done, and at the end of the day, it's not causing you pain or issues, then, because there's a place for turbulence. Turbulence sounds like a bad word, but it's not. There's a place for it. It's needed in certain situations. So it's learning to use your attributes.
Right.
And if there's situations like when I was younger and still more turbulent than assertive, I would have aligned myself, like you said, EJ, with someone who was assertive. That's what I would have done if I needed to, because I knew that was, but if you're doing it without intention, it can get a little messy. So
Right.
like Lori and I had that experience where it did get a little messy because I wasn't assertive. I was an introvert. I didn't like to stand up for myself and speak my mind. But then when I would get to that point where the other person wouldn't have any idea where it was coming from, because it was like, hey, I thought everything was fine. You didn't say anything. You should have said something if you didn't like it. Right.
Right.
And there's truth to that. But then like I said, it gets messy. But if we can be open about it and say, hey, I often tell my friends, I sometimes need your energy, to get through this. But then sometimes I need to get off the ride.
Right.
That is your energy.
Right.
So we need to know what that looks like and be able to do that successfully. So that's one thing, is just don't assume that turbulent is bad or assertive is good or assertive is bad. It's, what are your strengths and what are your qualities? What are your needs? Do you need to be more assertive in your life? Would it be helpful to you if you were? And so in that case, because in this personality test, assertive is different than assertiveness and communication. right?
Mm.
So assertiveness and communication is the kind of communication we all want to work towards and achieve. In that case, that is something to work on. But assertiveness versus turbulent personality traits may not need to change. But if you did, there are a few different things. First of all, kind of identifying what's the purpose. Always knowing the why of something will sort of put us down that path of change. Why do we need to do this?
Yep.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this, and there's this terminology. It's often just found in business, but it's the SWOT analysis, SWOT. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and I think the T, threats. So all of these different things, and you can do this personally too. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are opportunities for you to grow? But what's threats that could cause you to prevent one of those things from being successful?
Yes, I like that.
And there's plenty of videos on YouTube to kind of walk you through how to kind of write those out. And I'm sure there's I haven't looked them up, but I'm sure there's some regarding like personalities and different traits. And I know, like, I love, and I love joking that YouTube is a YouTube university. I mean, you can learn just about anything on there. And, I'm not saying that YouTube is like the best place, but there are a lot of people who are professional, have the degrees and have the experiences and the professional abilities to talk about these topics, and training. You can read books about it, go to, take classes if you want to learn something specific. Lori and I in our church, we often talk about boundaries, and how important that is. And there's a lot of books about it, out there. In fact, there's a series called Boundaries, and it's boundaries in, and then there's like dating, marriage, kids. I mean, there's a whole list of them. And it's funny because I'd heard about the book in my, at church, but then like 6 months later, I'm in a training class for getting my home care aide license, and the teacher starts talking about it, because a lot of caregivers don't have boundaries with their clients, because many of them, especially in my class, a lot of them were family members or friends that were going to become caregivers to like immediate family. So a lot of them were going to have a really hard time with boundaries. Whereas, like, aside from Lorian being my roommate, I was picking up non-friend or family member clients. So I had to find that balance of boundaries of like, what do I take home? What do I not take home from that job? So yeah, I like that. And I also feel like I like what you said about like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because I feel like so many people can dwell on things because somebody else is that way and not them. And they're like, well, I should be that way. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
It's working for you, maybe it is working for you better. And, I know that the word content often, sometimes people are hesitant because you're like, once you get content with something, then something throws a monkey wrench in it. So, have to be careful with that. But like, are you happy with the person that you are? Are you happy with the personalities that you have? Like, if you took that test, are you happy with the responses? If you're not, that's when you start looking at like, well, how can I change that? How can I work on that?
I think that's one of the reasons the Bible warns against coveting. If we covet what others have or who they are, we miss out on the gifts he's given us.
Right.
So, and it's really easy to fall into that place of, oh my gosh, look how successful they are. And man, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could have that kind of energy. But then I'm missing out on what I'm contributing. I'm losing perspective of what I have to contribute. And it's all valuable. And the Bible is really also very clear on that too, is that we're all parts of one body.
Right.
And so
Yes.
if we, decide, I want to be the head or I want to be the neck, but I'm a pinky, then all of a sudden the body doesn't have a pinky anymore and it has two necks. So that didn't do anybody any good. So we're all a piece of a whole.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why I really like that SWOT idea. I'm actually going to look into that more. That might be a great way to approach clients with, because those weaknesses need to be evaluated, and sometimes valued, because those weaknesses are a piece of the whole. And again, I always come back to this: is how do we define something? We may see it as a weakness, but someone else might be looking at it as a strength. Like,
Right.
man, that's pretty awesome. I wish I could do that, So there's a lot of perspective and definition happening. And I think it's got to start with within ourselves. If we're busy comparing ourselves to someone else, we'll never be satisfied.
Yeah. And
I think,
sometimes, oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
I was just
go-
gonna say, yeah, and sometimes it helps if you're not sure like what your strengths and weaknesses are, ask people that are close to you. Ask people, and if they can't give you a specific word, say, just give me some adjectives of what I am, what you see me as. And those adjectives can do a lot to help with figuring out where you lie and all that.
There's a reason I, named this podcast Behind the Mask. And this episode in particular is kind of just reminding me how much of my life has been lived with different masks that I put on just to survive, to overcome, to do all of these, just to live. And T, it's been great to learn that, because I feel like for most of my life, I felt like the masks were not me, or the masks were a projection or something that I wanted somebody to see, or there was a lot of negativity in those masks for me. But now I see what I'm trying to do is be more congruent. I'm trying to be more balanced, and I'm trying to embrace, because the masks are not in and of themselves a bad thing.
Right.
But they can also be a crutch. They can be a deterrent. They can, mask and hide things, but for me, the biggest part of this experience in trying to be more congruent and balanced is that learning to love what's behind the mask as much as what I think the world would love with whatever mask that I'm wearing. And hopefully sometimes maybe not even need to wear a mask. No, I'm not going to tell you a lie and tell you that I'm there, because that would be a lie. But I am so much more comfortable and so much more open to even getting to that point. So this is a journey, and I'm on it, and but it's been a lot more fun and a lot more filled with contentment and peace and joy and the things of life that I'm looking for. So
as you're talking, I'm picturing my closet. And I'm picturing how in one section I have winter clothes, fall clothes, spring clothes, summer clothes, clothes to wear to work, clothes to wear at home, clothes to wear when I'm going to go out and work in the yard versus, when I'm going to go to a wedding, right? So I have all these different clothes that I could wear. And sometimes I have to go in there and pull out the clothes that don't work anymore.
Right.
Yes. Amen.
That's a really good description.
Perfect metaphor for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as you were talking, T, and you said that, I was like, oh yeah, because everyone's like, well, why do you do this? I'm like, I still keep a couple of grubby shirts for painting. I
Yeah.
haven't painted anything in I don't know how long, but I still keep them because that's something I grew up with is, we were always, my dad would have some sort of random painting or he was fixing something in the house and he had to pull off this or that and needed something painted. And I was always ready to jump in. So I always had a couple of grubby shirts around, and I'm like, I don't know if I need that anymore. And I have a whole drawer of t-shirts that I used to wear to work that haven't worn in, well, since I moved in. So
Mhm.
like those probably don't need to be kept. And so
And
that's
if
a
you
totally
took
like,
those out, you could put more of what you do use in.
yeah, amen. And that's, yeah, it's exactly kind of what we're all talking about here. And I think that's awesome that we all kind of came up with our own metaphor with that. That's so really cool.
Yeah. This has been great, ladies. Thanks.
Just a friendly reminder that anything discussed in this podcast is not to be used as a diagnosis or replacement for conversations with your own doctors, therapists, psychologists, or other medical professionals. This episode is on YouTube and most major podcast platforms. If you're not a subscriber, we'd love for you to be one. Don't forget to like and click the subscribe button on YouTube and to keep up with our upcoming episodes. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Behind the Mask PC. You can also email future feedback or future episode ideas to us at behindthemaskpc@gmail.com. To find us, EJ, Lori, and T online, links for us will be in the description box of the episode. And on behalf of the ladies and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.